Welcome. Today, my name's Fola, and I'm here to share with you about my personal experience with spiritual emergence, spiritual awakening, however you want to call it, the Kundalini rising. Though I think that's maybe a little bit of a different concept. And really, how I reclaimed my power through this experience of awakening, which I think many of you have gone through, are going through, or whatever that might look like for you. So I have a lot to talk about today. I'm going to do my best to look through the comments as we go through. But I want to just add that on Monday for our regular intuitive card reading live, it's going to be the Mystic hotline Q&A, and I'll be answering questions then about this similar topic. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll do my best to make note of them. And then you'll want to come back, check in either live or at the recording on Monday for the response. So let's just ask for a cleansing of our minds, these spaces that we find ourselves in, the land that we walk on, to just bring us to a place of centeredness and grounding. I'm going to call to your ancestors, your guides, those angels that wish to support you, and any entities that want to contribute to a deepening of understanding for you in your life. So thank you. Thank you, Spirit. So if you are new here, again, my name's Fola, and I'm in this whole development of who and how I want to show up. But I guess just a little summary about me. I'm an ex-psychiatric nurse who has shown up now as this sort of spiritual bridge, this guide to support people who maybe this resonates with you. You're kind of tired of all this spiritual fluff and surface level healing and feel like there's something more. Yeah, I just share things online and hold space for people in very safe, sacred containers so that they can start to live their most magical life. So that's a bit about me. If you're wondering, who is this person? Why should I listen to her? And I have notes that I'm probably going to reference here because I feel like this will help me stay on track. So nice to have you here, Abraham, Meredith, Nesrin. Hello, your lovely card pull. Nesrin's my lovely, intuitive, insightful person across the globe. But yes, let me know where you're tuning in from. And as we go through, I'll ask you questions. Share your thoughts. What does spiritual awakening mean for you? Because what's happening when we talk about spiritual awakening or the spiritual journey is we're shedding old roles. We're rediscovering who we actually are, the truths about ourselves, our true will, that which links to the divine will. And this is really about us waking up to who we are. So I'm going to be sharing a few different things. I'm going to be sharing a bit about what happened to me, some of the turning points around my own spiritual journey, and kind of what led me from this sense of burnout and confusion to just having a sense of clarity and empowerment. And I want to share a bit about why, we shift. Why is it spiritual emergence happens? And really what it is this next step of our evolution, both as individuals and as a collective humanity. And then, of course, we'll end with some kind of practical insights for those of you who might be feeling really sensitive or lost, or maybe you just feel that call to transformation and you're not really sure what to do next. And this is a great time for you all as community to share your insights, your learnings, because we're all learning, right? We're all here to expand and evolve with each other and help each other do that. So I think it's the cool thing about this space. Hi, Robin. Hello from NYC. Hi, Kaylee. Hello. Nice. Yeah, long time. I'm liking your content on Instagram. Congrats with all the training and completion. Okay. Hi, Neymar. Yes. Well, let's just start with a grounding before I get into the story, because if there's one thing I learned about spiritual awakening, is it can be such an elevating experience, ungrounding experience, that it's important we enter into any space intentionally and with a sense of like connection to the earth, connection to the place we were born. So just inviting you to just perhaps, if it feels right for you, close your eyes here. Or if not, gaze at a point just in front of you. And allow your feet to find a anchor down on the earth. And just letting your breath begin to guide you here as you relax, starting at your feet, relaxing up through the legs. Just letting go of any tension. Allowing the weight of your body to continue to bring you to this still point. Moving up through the hips. Just releasing any tension here, any tightness in the muscles. Maybe shifting a bit in the hips, adjusting your back as needed as you continue to bring awareness up through the belly, the chest, the entire torso and arms. Allowing your breath to wash over you as it moves up now into your throat and neck, and up around your head, into your face. Your entire body connected here. Awareness. Now imagine roots growing out through the soles of your feet, going down into the earth, rooting you to her. And if you've ever seen the root systems of trees, you know that they are intersecting with each other from all over, across lands and neighborhoods and cities, countries. And so here we all are in our respective spaces, but the roots from our feet move into the earth and they begin to link with one another, with the trees, with the different plant life all around, with those little fungi, mycelium that also grow, the wisdom of all this natural world, linking with you and grounding you, supporting you here. Knowing that as we continue through this conversation today, just all you need to do to bring a sense of peace and ease is to connect to this grounded anchor of the roots into the earth. And on your next inhale, just returning back with open eyes. Hello, Tommy. Hi. Okay. So what happened? What happened, those many years ago? You guys, it's been like, 10, 11 years. 10 years. And in 2014, I had a child, and it was like a life-changing moment for me. I think as it would be for most parents, whether good or not so good. But at that time, like I mentioned, I was working as a psych nurse, but here I was all of a sudden with no distraction, nothing really to do except take care of this little mini version that had come from my hands, from my womb. And I was in a really inquisitive mood at that point, just because there was so much space, so much time. And you know what they say, like an idle mind is the devil's playground. Whoops. But for me, this was really when I started to perceive life differently. I was starting to ask questions about my life, about myself, like who was I, and who am I? What am I becoming? What is all this life that I'm living? What was I doing exactly? And was it really lighting me up? And it was around that time on my mat leave that I also started just diving into these different concepts around energy and quantum physics. All that good, juicy kind of like consciousness stuff. But I didn't really have a good understanding, like an experiential knowing of what it was I was reading. which I will recommend right here, a really great book. If you hear me talk about energy, you're not really sure, like, what, right? Or you're just like, hey, I want to understand more. A really, really great book, I would say, is called Frequency. I will try to find it and post it somewhere probably later because I don't remember the author's name right now, but it's a purple book. It's really great. And she, I think, was like an ex-NASA scientist, physicist, and just how she kind of linked everything into a more almost spiritual perspective. So this book, along with my meeting some of these friends, these new people in my life who were definitely connected to this new way of seeing the world. And I would hang out with them, but again, I didn't really know what they were talking about. I was like, oh yeah, I would just listen and try. It's like I had this burning desire inside of myself to understand something. But things really changed around 2015 when I ended up meeting someone, and this person would completely change the trajectory of my life. Long story short, this person activated something inside of me, this random encounter, albeit really not that random. And at the time, I actually thought I had been drugged. Like my perception was shifting. I was seeing things with my physical eyes differently. Like just they seemed to have a glow. Like, yeah, it was very, I can't even explain what was going on necessarily with that. And also, I was having a lot of physical, like, sensations, tingling and, like, vibration, and it would be at different points in my body. They just felt so overwhelmed, with and it was exciting, but also really scary. If any of you know me, like, I tend to operate from a very, like, paranoid, anxious perspective. Great upbringing to have. So it requires this recentering. But when I was making my way home, thinking I'm about to have a psychotic break, here comes all the psych nursing training and assessment. I called my friend who is a psych nurse, someone that I trusted, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's happened to me. I don't know what's going on. I think I've been drugged. And she was like, hey, let's go to the doctor. So she came and she like took me to the doctor, and the doctor just laughed. And honestly, thinking back, I was like very grateful for the doctor's almost nonchalant attitude or approach to what I was going through, because it just meant I had to go home and just sit with what was happening. And for several months, I was going through this process of my perception to energy, to the world around me. This reality was starting to awaken, starting to shift. And it had its ups and downs. I'm going to talk a bit about that. But because of this newfound perception, I found myself being drawn to more conversations and topics around altered states, around psychedelics, like really diving into that world, into the concepts of spiritual emergence, which is just another fancy word for spiritual awakening. And I took a lot of courses. I was learning, like, this, I think, is an important part of any awakening, right? Just like as a kid is born and grows up, we go to school, we absorb information, we hopefully will go for the things that excite us. This is some of the stuff I was starting to do. And I took courses with like the famous Stan Groff, well-known psychiatrist who really was innovative with a lot of the psychedelic altered states of consciousness world in like the 60s and beyond, along with Emma Bragdon, who I would recommend her information from Integrative Mental Health for You. These people were really like paramount for me to come into a deeper understanding of what spiritual emergence meant, or spiritual emergency, along with the concepts of like integrative psychiatry. Coming from the psychiatric lens as a nurse, working with people in the community. I worked at the time with the police and crisis team, and I was like going through this awakening, and it was really beautiful and challenging for me because I was starting to recognize something, I was starting to recognize that I had certain abilities, certain insights or intuitive insights that I would gain, and this was showing up at work. It was showing up in all areas of my life. I mentioned a bit of like some of the things that happened initially for me, that like some of the signs, symptoms, however you want to identify that, it's such a very clinical way we would describe it in our Western world. Some of the things that happened for me again were like this tingling sensation, energy moving, literally like feeling things moving, crawling through body, seeing energy like the brightness, or, I would say they were like auras, but they weren't like the auras I was hoping to see as I continued my journey, where it's like, oh, purples and pinks and blues. No, it was more like vibrations off of objects, especially natural objects. And then I was just picking up a lot on people's stuff, like I said, their emotions, physical ailments, things happening before they happened, like thoughts or whatever you want to call them. Also, I remember at that point having a lot of like head crown sensations. I had kind of started taking ashwagandha. So I sometimes wonder if that was part of even just kind of like, um, I guess, the anticipation of this process that was happening for me. But it was like, I felt like some days I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have like a brain tumor? What's going on? It felt weird in my head. But like thinking back, it's like it was just like all of this crown, these chakras, energy centers, we call them. It was everything was becoming active. It was awakening. One of the most important parts that like stands out to me from this whole kind of like awakening process was the level of anxiety that I felt. And, this was part of my learning too, is to recognize anxiety as actual energy sensitivity. Because what would happen is I'd wake up, like if I could sleep, because there are times where it just sleep was off, as I'm sure you may know. And I would go and I would like open the blinds and I would just look out of the window and I felt this sense of impending doom. And I couldn't explain it. It would just be so overwhelming. And I would just like crawl back into bed because I was like, and I remember thinking about, the very rare clientele I had who experienced things like agoraphobia. Maybe they couldn't get outside. People who just talked about feeling so anxious they couldn't leave their house. I'm like, this is kind of what that is. Like, oh my gosh, what a horrible feeling. And I would like get back into my bed and I would, text my friend, or usually what was happening, she would text me. And I'll talk a bit about her, my lovely soul sister. And she would just share these symptoms, the signs, the things that happened during spiritual awakening. So much gratitude for these people in my life at that time. But as with any awakening, we go through shifts of our energy. Our body physically and our energetic bodies are trying to up level. They are shifting, moving, clearing things that don't serve us. And so the energy levels shift, where sometimes I was so energized, I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I was like completely exhausted. And another thing I started to notice was the world around me, like in terms of relationships, interactions with people, it became more magical in the more positive ones that were meant to be. And there was so much drama, especially within my family structure, because I was starting to like become aware of certain ways of how I was living life, how I was being playing victim, how I was recognizing I just would do things because they told me to do it. And this was, I guess, me waking up and being like, well, I'm an empowered being. Like, I get to make choice. And along the way, all the learnings, all the things that would say have contributed to who I am now, they came and they found me just magically. This is synchronicity. This is the magic of life. You don't really have to like work for it necessarily. It just shows up. Even some of you watching this today, like you might just be here hearing this conversation and it's like, oh, look, how cool is it we have technology to be a part of this like synchronistic algorithm, is what I want to call it. So, with all this stuff happening, I didn't really take time off work. I was still going and doing my job, working with the police and crisis team. My job was to assess people's mental health, determine if they needed other supports, determine if they were at risk enough to warrant needing to go to a hospital for admission. And it's kind of funny, when you have this much influence over someone else's life, you really start to wake up to question your ethics, the morals, the different things you're meant to be doing. And as I was going through this awakening, I was having more and more interactions with clients in the psychiatric field where it was like, what's the difference between what I'm going through and what this person is going through? I remember once, like a client basically talking, we'd been called out because they were hearing angels, and there was all this sort of like heavenly realm stuff going on. And the assessment, like to me, they seemed completely like grounded. It was just when you got talking about this stuff they were experiencing, and I was like, well, I sometimes hear angels. Like, started to have a very different perspective on how I approached people who, in before this whole awakening, I would just be like, oh, if it's psychosis or not, or what, right? Are you at risk or not? It's like everything started to become a more holistic perspective for me. And yeah, that really just started to shake things up of, okay, what's actually going on for people? How can we start to normalize these sorts of unusual peak experiences, however they may be brought on, whether it's through drugs, right? Through recollection of traumatic events or some other type of situation that's maybe appeared. I believe that this is really an invitation for us to reach like a sense of greater wholeness. It's not always a crisis that needs to just be fixed, contained, or bottled up with like medication, with seeing a therapist, with whatever. It was like, hey, there's something more here. And so this kind of leads me into the next point around spiritual emergence as this next step of your evolution. And if you are new here, like wherever you're coming from, doesn't matter if you've heard these phrases or these terms or these ideas before or not, like just recognizing you're here for a reason. But what I started to realize is that we can all go through these difficult times, and we're all asked to upgrade our lives, to enter into a sense of greater awareness, to integrate these deeper aspects of self, and ultimately transcend these old patterns, right? So that we can live in alignment with our truth, have a sense of empowerment, and eventually, or at the same time, recognize that everything that is going on for you is like actually magic and a communication with God, the universe, spirit, with your soul. I wanted to read something to you guys. Oh, I think I have it in my notes here. This is from this book by Edwin McManus, Soul Cravings. I just love those little like free, those like library things people have on their front porch or wherever on their lawn. This is where I got this book. I definitely recommend. Synchronicity, great. If you can find these little like free book libraries somewhere, that's how I find a lot of interesting reads. And I'm just like, oh, I needed to see that today. But I want to read to you what he says about hope, this important factor that can help us with facing life's challenges, of moving into this next step of evolution. He says, the word metamorphosis describes a change that literally moves us from crawling to flying. It's necessary change if we're going to journey to the future we were created to live, experience, and enjoy. Sometimes we choose to just be the worm. At other times, our preference is to hide in the cocoon. But every now and again, we choose to engage the difficult struggle of breaking out. It's pain, it's frustrating, it's hard work. We might even wonder why God would make the cocoon so hard to escape from, never realizing it's the process itself that strengthens our wings and prepares us for flight. And he goes on, I believe, to say a bit of like, I think it was in here, it might even have been another book I read, but basically how God, the universe, spirit, however you want to identify that, meets us also as we are trying to make our way out of this cocoon. But this metamorphosis, this transformation, this change, this dying rebirth process is inevitable. For me, it happened during that Saturn return. Saturn return is a concept, if you're not familiar with, where Saturn in your birth chart placement, according to astrology, takes about like 30 years or so, 25 to 30 years to make its way back in the exact same point. And I do believe that that Saturn return that's when it happens. At least the first time. It happens again, usually 50s, right? That's the 50s, 60s. That's the like midlife crisis, as we like to call it. And we all know someone who's gone through that. I remember when my dad went through that, I was like, what are you doing? But this metamorphosis, this change, it's inevitable. And you can either choose to just stay as a worm. I don't know. I want to call that the like, what is that? NPC, non-player character. Nothing wrong with that. Whatever. Or you can continue to hide in the cocoon. And let me tell you, that's super uncomfortable. You can just continually ignore the signs, ignore the things that you're being led to, explore, and put off the work, as we would call it. In the esoteric, magical, kind of Western esoteric path, it's called the great work. It requires some effort, right? It's pain. It's frustrating. It's hard work. But I say hard because it's like, it's the difficult things that we have to look at in our life, the shadow parts, right? Those like wounds that we would rather just hide away. It's not like it's hard work. You got to lift 100 pounds from zero. It's about, okay, this requires a dedication, a commitment for you to yourself. And I think to the world, right? Humanity as a whole. Because our evolution individually impacts that of the evolution around us. It starts to mirror. In shamanism, we talk about how it ripples through 7 generations. So the healing work I've done will ripple through 7 generations back and forward through my family line to support them, even if the people have passed. And trust me, it's not like you go into that work thinking it's going to, and that's like, oh, okay, I want to fix my parents. Let me do this healing work. It's like, no, you do it for yourself. Then you start to see the shifts in your parents, in grandparents, in children, grandchildren, so forth. Let me have some water. And let me just tune into some comments. I've never been to the United States, but I'd really like to go. Cool. Thanks for being here, Tommy. I hold that up that you can visit the States. So it is. Or whatever that looks like for you. Anything's possible. Follow your dreams. Ooh, I could talk for hours about that one. Okay. So to me, this evolution, this transformation, the things that mostly is very uncomfortable. It's because it led me to make some decisions that really I probably wouldn't have. And most people don't, because it ain't easy. Hi, Tara. So my spiritual emergence, this experience led me, the big one was to walk away from an unfulfilled marriage, right? Leave this thing I had established, this home I had built, like to go for something else. For me, it was really, I started to realize the spiritual connections I had from my past, but they had all been dimmed. And my partner at the time did not have the capability to like see that or receive that. And I was like, whoa, this is so much more important to me. When we shift and transform, our energy level, our vibration, our frequency literally starts to, that's why you hear the concepts of raise your vibration. But it's because you're here resonating with people now in your life. But when your energy starts to shift, and maybe you just start vibrating at a quicker level, again, not better or worse, you start to operate at a different level. And the people that you knew, the situations or places you used to go, they are still at that same old level, and you can't even connect anymore. So this is what happens. And this is why we have to sometimes walk away from things, say goodbye to things, end things. For me, this also meant coming to terms with past wounding. I uncovered past, like, what do you call it? Oh my goodness, hidden, repressed, like sexual trauma, having to come to terms with that, childhood and ancestral traumas that had happened, things that I had known about and things that I didn't know that my ancestors literally just brought through dream times and were later confirmed through conversations with family, and having to have really honest conversations with people in my life. To me, a really great part of this awakening was healing codependency and my patterns for toxic relationships. And that was a hard one. That took me quite a while. It led me to embracing this sense of authenticity, coming into self love, which to me is all linked to that codependent behavior, and being willing to just embrace me for me, my quirks, my eccentricness, my low key trickster energy, and all the other shadows, everything in between there, those demons, right, that make us who we are. And I'm not saying I'm an expert or I've moved through everything. Like just this morning, you guys, I'm like, in the last 24 hours dealing with some major like social relationship stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I caught myself in a conversation with a sisterhood group. And I'm like, why am I being so resistant? This morning, I moved through it. I had insights with the practices that I want to share with you. And I feel grateful that like this is just part of our evolution. And I'm excited to be able to share more. And this is where it's taking me. I started really with a Reiki session that, like, many years ago showed me how blocked my throat chakra is or was. I've mentioned this on the channel before, but now it's just like continually blossoming, opening, and I am sharing my voice on YouTube. I share through my books, the writings I have published and continue to share online, emails and the arcane letters. If you're signed up for that, cool, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I think there's a link probably somewhere. And through the music that now I'm in the process of like really recording and establishing myself as a musician, an artist, a creative in that sense. Never thought I would like let people hear me sing or to hear me play instruments in public, but here we are. And because I've been willing to move with this work. So if you were to ask me back in 2014, like, yeah, would I see myself here right now? No, no, no. I would have been like, what are you talking about? Who are you? What drugs have you been taking? So how did I shift this? What are some ways that you can start to implement this? Start to tune into your path. Tune into your heart's desire. I'm reading that Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I just love that. Burning heart's desire. Oh, anyways, okay, I gotta stay on track here. There's so many things I want to talk about. So let's dive into some of that. I'm gonna check the comments that like, how can you shift? I'll share how for myself it was a process and some like kind of tips for you, little breadcrumbs on the path that when you leave here today, I hope you will have another level of faith and hope in your journey and to recognize those synchronicities, those breadcrumbs, right? When they show up, because you heard me say a word like 10 times that really just stood out to you. And then all of a sudden you're hearing it over here somewhere else with someone you meet. Like, trust me, this is just the craziness that happens. So let's see. Yes, I said hello to Hira. Abraham, my Saturn is around the corner. He's there. Good old karmic teacher Saturn. Oh, the devil, but it's so needed. So needed. Robin says, my spiritual awakening happened during lockdown when I was able to read and meditate, and still I quit my job working in the emergency room. Yeah. Wow. It takes courage to do that. As a psych nurse who's left the healthcare system, completely left her licensing, I can tell you it is not easy. And it sounds like, Robin, you left a religious cult. Wow. 40 years. Ooh, an ending. Oh, and like the numbers, you guys, the numbers are like a powerful thing. But, when I realized, even just from seeing you share that, Robin, is most of us, all of humanity, with the lockdown, those 5 years ago now, went through the beginning process of this. That was the cocoon. Literally, imagine being, whoom, oh my God, I can't leave my house. I can't go outside and be around people. You literally were the caterpillar in the cocoon. Now it's like, have you opened? Have you done the things, followed the intuitive nudges to take the next leap? And that will look different for everyone. I'm not saying you have to go quit your job. I'm not saying you have to go leave your profession or your religious, spiritual beliefs out the door. No, but for some people, for myself, obviously Robin, whoever else, some of these things we've had to take the leap. And it literally is a unbounded leap of faith across the cliff, right? When we think about the Fool card. I'm not going to get too much into all this esoteric stuff. If that interests you, you want to go deeper, because I think it's all related. It's all connected. It's going to help you unlock more of the mystery, more of the direction in your life. You can join the membership here on the community. I got lots of fun things in there. But you need to just recognize that it does require a next level step for the next level life. A big step. But that could sometimes be like the most simplest step. So the way through the emergence is one of gathering the right tools, having compassion for yourself and for others, making trusting, heartfelt connections. And it's an ongoing, ever-evolving process. So my first word of advice for you is to just be gentle with yourself. Recognize, that what works for you today or what worked for you yesterday may not work for you tomorrow. And that's okay. This is about this evolution, movement, the wheel. At the beginning of my journey, things were really intense, and there were things I learned along the way that I want to share with you here today. And let me know, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. Let me know, let the community know, people who are going to come and read this chat, take part in watching this video. But the first thing really I would say is living in this day by day present moment. So each day when you go through this awakening process, when you are transforming yourself into this butterfly, you will gain new ways of perceiving, seeing, being, right? Your reality. And really, this is about waking up to a new reality. And with a new reality means you need to have a new framework. There's going to be a new language that you start to develop. If you had met me back before all of this stuff, would I be talking about things like transformation or integration or shadow work, like magic? No, not at all. But it's like you, again, being birthed into a new world, a baby coming out from the birth canal. You have to be patient with yourself and just recognize that you are building a library, a encyclopedia of everything that you're experiencing. And I often share about this in like my Reiki classes, this idea of like creating your own, you don't have to actually write this down, by the way, but that's cool too. Creating your own encyclopedia of how you perceive energy, how you start to see or witness things. And you start to connect the dots, like the brain neural pathways all linking and lighting up as you continue to develop. But being in this present moment, being okay with knowing that what connects dots here one day may dissolve and connect again over here the next. And with this, to live by day by day, to live in the present moment, you need to be able to practice, at least learn how to ground, that feet on the earth, time in nature, breathing, meditating, receiving energy work like Reiki, sound healing, or whatever other things you're interested in. I see here, I also took a pranic yoga. Pranic, oh, it disappeared, the comment. Whatever that was, somewhere I saw. Oh, energy healing, Robin says. Hi, Jane. Anyways, Thanks, Abraham. I love all your excitement. This is awesome. Hi, Fatima. Nowhere land. Hello. You have the power. So we started this whole call with a grounding practice, right? Imagining those roots growing out the soles of your feet. To me, that's like the most simplest, easy practice we can do. We can do it anywhere when we're standing in line at the grocery store, trying not to lose our minds with the busyness, picking up on people's stuff. And it's also the work that you do to ground, not just when you're in like an anxious, elevated state. It's a daily practice. I remember one of my like Magick teachers sharing something about the concept of tithing that really stood out to me. And I'm nowhere at this point. I just really admired her like dedication to her path. But she was like, you know how you tithe 10% of like your money, donations, tithing in a church or whatever, For me, I practiced tithing for like a couple years where I would just find places I wanted to give 10%. And honestly, those were the most lucrative years, I would say. So there's something about that from a financial point. But she was talking about tithing our time, our time to spiritual work. And so she was like 2 hours a day, however you want to divide that up. Say with Vipassana, they encourage that 1 hour morning, 1 hour night, you do the Vipassana meditation. And so to me, it's like, how can we build up our ritual toolkits, our spiritual toolkits to get to that like 10%, which 2 hours of 24 hours, that's 10% of your day, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so for me, I take that as, okay, if I can stretch, if I can then work out and journal and meditate, spend time reflecting or whatever ritual sort of practices, the lesser banishing ritual, all the different like practices that I often use. Those pieces I will do either as much of a clump I can or spread out through a day. That to me is a consideration of tithing, of showing a self dedication. And when I say that, it's like building, like we're talking about grounding, building resilience and building a practice that works for you, whatever that is. I'm not here to tell you what that is, so that you can reset your nervous system, balance, and feel that sense of like security and stability more frequently. Not all the time, but more frequently. And when I was going through my awakening, like that process, then I just started needing to eat like vegetarian and plant-based meals. I don't even know why. It's been a long time since I'd done that. To me, it was like eating meat almost led to more anxiety. So that could be something that's showing up for you. How can you integrate different grounding practices? Maybe it's eating more meat. I don't know, right? Like, because meat to me is like very grounding. If I'm feeling too whoo, then it's like now I'll be like, okay, maybe I need to eat something really like grounding. And I'll never forget, I had seen like a holotropic breathwork facilitator, thanks to that friend who activated something in me. And her word of advice was like, I think it was on a phone call way before I had gone to see her because she was like in another city. And it was very much a process to get in to see her. She was like, have sex. She's like, that's like the most grounding thing you can do. And I remember thinking like, it is actually, it does feel, it like brings self into body. As long as sex is safe for you. Okay. So I'm not encouraging that unless really it's like a thing that you feel called to. Oh, one more thing, and then I'm going to read some of the comments. So learn. That was the next one to help you with this process of evolution, of spiritual awakening, is just recognizing you are to take in as much as you can and still, when it feels overwhelming, ground. Take breaks. Don't read all 10 books you took out at once. Like maybe start with one and then see from there. Because we can just continually add. I know people who do this. I was one of these people. taking course, info, like absorbing everything, and then not really having the time to integrate it. And it wasn't until a couple years ago I finally was like, you know what? I'm taking a year of just no. And that was so hard for me to not sign up for classes. All the classes I wanted to take were showing up in my like inbox. And I was like, oh, like I want to do this so badly. But I had said to myself, no, for a full year. I'm not taking any class. I'm not signing up for any thing that's going to add new info, because what needs to happen is there, we have the tree of life and the concept of wisdom on one side. That's all the knowledge we can bring in. But then we have understanding on the other side of the tree. And we need both of those. We need to get the info and we need to integrate it and have the experiential understanding of it. So wherever you are in your journey, maybe you're more on the wisdom where you're gathering info and you haven't really taken the steps to learn anything. Well, then tune in here. Sign up for that class you've been feeling about called to take, right? Whatever it might be. But maybe you're also here because you've learned so much and now you need this way to like practically integrate it, embody it, put it to use, right? This is, I think, the important part. So let me read the comments, then I'll continue with the last few pieces, and then I think we'll be done. Okay. I awaken to the fact that I am source, I am free, I am sovereign, and I need no middle person saying anything different. That's going to be my next statement. So thank you, Robin. Test everything. I'll share more about that. Fatima, hope you are well. Yes, my spiritual awakening happened in hospital in COVID time in order to save my marriage. It was the other way around in my case. Oh, interesting. See, it can happen so differently, and there's no right or wrong way. It's your journey or country. I just need someone to start paying my rent, Abraham says, so I can do a deep dive. Oh, that's so fascinating you say that. And this is something I still like work with is like, okay, so what can happen for us is we can be in these states of scarcity or lack because there's parts of us that don't want to move beyond because it's scary to move beyond. So I definitely invite you to explore those like subconscious beliefs through ritual. And I say ritual, it can be as simple as, we're coming up to the new moon. There's a new moon ritual happening here on the membership tomorrow evening at 7. That might be the thing, right? You, though, on your own time, in your own space, light a candle or just sit and connect to the moon and be like, okay, what did you say here, Abraham? I want to be able to focus on these deep dives now. All the resources, everything I need to be able to do that, come forward and clear anything that's holding me from this. And this is as simple of a ritual you can do. Journal then on the things that are showing up, the beliefs you have, the stories you've held on to that you can't do both. I don't know, whatever it might be. This is all part of that process. And we all are allowed to learn the things we want to. Okay, Fatima says, I was actually shown many people who I have never met who has done things behind our back. I also have a son with ADHD who's 13, so this was a massive shock. Nesrin says, trust your instinct, trust Mother Nature, trust your guides, be patient with yourself, understand the magic, do magic, and live with magic so you become magic. Lots of devotions. I've seen a massive growth despite my being registered blind. Yeah, thanks, Fatima, for sharing that. Devotions is Sufi, descendant of Solomon Muhammad. There you go again, Nazareth. I'm telling you, man. The other day, I don't know if anyone was here on the live, someone said, my name's Shams. I don't think if I told you that, Nazareth. Thanks for sharing that, Fatima. And yes, you're welcome, Abraham. Whatever this means for you, Right now, I feel like a huge process of the awakening, spiritual awakening, and us awakening to our power is that majority of people are facing that, like the place where it's like everything in my physical reality looks like I am broke AF, right? Where's the money? The bills keep coming, all this stuff, right? And I'm like sitting here looking around at all these people I know who know abundance practices, who like practice magic for a wide range of things, who have done the healing work and know their worth, but they still are coming into this space. And my personal opinion is that it's like we're supposed to, and we're supposed to break beyond what we're seeing. What we're seeing, $0 in your bank account or whatever. What if you were to just be like, okay, so now what is it that I do have? What am I grateful for? And trusting and asking, putting it out there to the universe to bring forward and start to see how things are manifesting in your life. Because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not like predicting anything here, but I feel like for many of you who are watching, who are like in this place of like, I'm aware of spiritual stuff and I'm seeing like that I deserve more, better than this, but I'm in this situation. It's like, I think it's happening because we're preparing ourselves for something a bit more intense that many people who are not conscious, not going through the awakening, not taking the info or following those like intuitive nudges to learn more or practice more, there's going to be a real shakeup. And those of us who at least now have been facing these things and recognizing, getting to the point where it's like, that doesn't really, it's not causing me anxiety anymore. My nervous system still feels safe and grounded, even when the physical world around me looks like chaos. And maybe I'm delusional, but it seems to be working really well, and it's been working for like a couple years now. So here we are. Okay, let's go on. So Robin, I think it was, kind of mentioned that whole concept of, right? I think it was Robin. Oh my goodness, where are the comments? I need no middle person saying anything different. The next thing on my list for you is to test everything. I mean, I'm speaking these things now, right? I'm saying, go do a ritual, everything will get better. It's like you have to do the ritual. You have to take the action. You have to test what you're hearing or reading or learning about, what you're being told by others, spiritual teachers, gurus, whatever, right? And actually test it. See if it's true for you. Because just because someone says it doesn't mean it's necessarily your truth, right? This is also a part of you having to learn to listen to your intuition, building a connection with your body, with your womb, that gut knowing through breath, meditation, whatever, intention, right? If I want to deepen my relationship with my intuition, I'll do a ritual around it, right? And learning to say yes to what is your truth and no to what isn't, these boundaries that you're being called to ask. But this is a huge part. And magic is really this. Crowley talks about this concept of like the scientific illuminism. That's kind of what magic is in the AA system. These are magical orders. It's like it's not just about doing magic and like, woo, look, it's fancy. It's like, I do I call upon this planet, this spirit, this whatever, however depth someone wants to go to. And then the result is B. And the result, I'm hoping, is exactly what I wanted, what my intention was. And if it's not, then, okay, no. Or try again, figuring out maybe my mindset wasn't in the right place. My emotions weren't in the right place. I actually got the magical planetary hour wrong. And instead of like Jupiter, it was actually Saturn I was working with. There's all this stuff. You can get so deep into it. I'm not saying that needs to be your case, but it's about testing, and you figure out your test, your experimentation, Your intuition will guide you with that. A huge thing for me was the support networks. This is another thing I think, we have this community here. If you're new here, subscribe. If you are in the community or you want to be in the community, join it. There's so much more happening, and I'm excited to share more in the next little bit here, because it's through these networks, through community, through relationships, that we get to really feel a bit of a sense of confidence in what we're doing, because people will mirror things to us. I mentioned that like soul sister who literally, you guys, I'd be in bed, it'd be like 4 a.m. I'd have opened the blinds and I'd be like, and I'd go back into bed. And she would text me like some link to something. Like, she's so tuned in, right? And like, I just have, honestly, she was like a godsend. Godsend. We're like very, very, there's a lot of soul family ties between her and a lot of other people that were in my like network at that point in time. And it's like, this is what we've done for lifetimes. Helped each other through this like crazy whatever. So build this network. You trust you'll have connections. Use those connections. Like Abraham, I'll just share, like, messaged me just today, right? On Instagram. And I was like, hey, this thing's happening, like, just be open and share. Obviously, use your discretion to share what feels true for you in the right spaces, because not everywhere is safe. But support and networking and community can really be helpful. And I hope that this channel can be a part of that for you. And there's more to come, so you'll want to check that out. And then, of course, lastly, for me, it was learning no more surface level BS, surface level healing, spiritual fluff. Like anything that's like here, it's like, that iceberg where you see the tip of the iceberg, but underneath is the majority of the things of the iceberg, like the majority of the bulk of its body. I was learning that like we really have to take the healing process, this awakening process, seriously. Okay. She asked for me, it began with meditation and like, oh, the chakras, that's nice. And bringing like breath, like this stuff I think is so simple and powerful. But at that point in my awakening, like beginning, I definitely had no idea what I was doing. And I had a very superficial level of understanding. But then I took a Reiki class because something was calling me to do that. And then all of a sudden I found myself in the shamanic path. Completely fluke accident, which I think I've shared. Won't spend time on that, but literally not what I was looking for. It found me. And then plant medicine, the psychedelic realm, and then all that stuff kind of was falling, and magic, ritual, ceremony, these esoteric teachings, some of the stuff that I really dive into in the community membership that to me have completely transformed my life. But I recognize it's not for everyone right at the beginning. So facing these inner demons, no more surface level healing, looking at the shadows that are like lurking in the dark that want to tear us down, but ultimately they want to contribute something to our lives so that we can, again, be this whole, this new whole, like regenerated being. So with that, just letting all that I've said in this last pretty much hour kind of settle. But I want to ask you and invite you to name at least one thing that you're taking away with you today. Whether it's an actionable step, maybe it's a new perspective, some insight about your own journey or about someone's journey that you know. Feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm going to check in some of these words. More intense is coming from what I've been shown. Yes, you're welcome, Abraham. King of Swords, Emperor. That's very, very masculine, airy, like strong cards. Initiatory cards, I feel. Apparently, I'm on a twin soul journey, so that also made sense. It was like one after another in that first few days. My home and hospital is literally 5 minutes down the road. So it's been just both places. Cool. Yeah, this quantum jumping of like two timelines, Fatima. Yeah, that's why I'm here, Abraham says. Okay. So for those of you who do feel like you're just tired of all this spiritual fluff, this surface level healing, maybe you've done the work, but you want to kind of address some of the root causes of the struggles you're going through. Or maybe you're just starting to realize like your sensitivity to energy is like increasing so much so it's even out of like past the roof. You want to have practical ways to navigate this next level of awakening, then I think you're in the right place. And like I said, there's more to come. I invite you just to keep following me here, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're made known when things come live. And I share just, inspiring, empowering transmissions on here, whether it's like tomorrow evening's new moon ritual in our membership, where we're going to tap into this Virgo new moon, this part one, because it's technically two Virgo new moons, which is really exciting. Or it could be some of the lives that I host, just open forum here where we pull cards and get a read on the intuitive, like collective reading for humanity and for people who want personal readings. What else do I do? The Explore the Tarot series, whatever. There's so much stuff, so much learning, so much potential here. So I definitely encourage you to subscribe, follow, and stay connected. But if you are ready, you want to dive deeper, maybe you want to start create these shifts that really align you with your most magical self, your most magical life, then I invite you to check out the links below and hit me up. Let's have a one-on-one soul alchemy session. This is really where we can work together for you to start to shift your old patterns, unlock any intuitive wisdom, because trust me, you have that inside of you and all around you. Your guides are there. They want you to know. And this is going to help you reconnect to the deepest desires, your true will, this place in which you're meant to walk forward, that butterfly flying, emerging from the cocoon. So you can check those links in the description. And I want to thank you all for being here today. So I'm seeing some comments here like Abraham saying I'm going to consider the tithing of time when I'm watching my toddler. Ooh, I like that. This thing about sticking to community, you mentioned you had people you had to call. And also the whole shadow thing where you said they might be there to help you. Yeah. Robin says, what I learned from today's session is that everything is an inside job. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Isn't that the name? Oh, Inside Out is the name of the movie. Yes, you're welcome, Abraham. Yeah. And yes, those, ugh, I don't even think I need to speak about it, but no, I don't need to speak about that. But yeah, the shadow work is an ongoing process. We're all meant to, I think, answer that call, and it has profound shifts for us. So let's alchemize this shit together. Let's turn it into gold. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Let's close with just a grounding. So just feeling yourself again present, feet on the ground, and noticing those roots, those anchor points. As you breathe, and just imagine any tension, anything from this conversation today that made it felt too heavy or brought a sense of doubt or worry or, confusion, to just let it transmute into the earth and come back up into your body as a light. Using the earth as like a filtration system, because it's not about us getting rid of the things so we can be lighter. It's like us transmuting the things so that we can, again, become whole, be in this wholeness that we are. Harmony, because it pulled a card here, Mystic Star. Harmony in the home and great friendships. So whatever that might mean for you, that word harmony. Recognizing that you deserve to have that in your life, that you deserve to emit that harmonic energy, and that there is a purpose for you, that you are walking that purpose out every day. We just release any of those energies that were present here for you to go back from whence you came, for us to walk a path here forward, lit clearly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. So just returning back, and yeah, you're welcome, everyone. Nice to have you join in. I love that dancer. Bye, everyone. Till, yeah, the next time.